Hi, Billy the Artist here, and today we're going to do Blade Ranger from Planes, Fire and Rescue. We've already done Focus, Focus, come on in, it's just blank paper, there we go. Dusty Crop Hopper from Planes, Fire and Rescue, and we've also done Little Dipper. So we've got those two already, but now we're going to do Blade Ranger, and we're just going to dive in and get on. And you can see these are a little bit smaller. Click the link and you can go to their videos as well. You'll go to the how-to playlist, but you can see these are A4 and I'm going to use a piece of A3 because Blade Ranger is a helicopter and he's got massive blades across the top of a helicopter, so I'm going to use a bigger piece of paper and it's A3, and we're just going to get him in quite quickly. Again, remember, just putting the shapes in. So we need the blades going all the way across. In fact, that needs to be a little bit lower, so we'll use that for the back. So that is going to be the tip from edge to edge, and then we need the centre, and you got a centre line, and you got the top that spins round, and this is just a giant ellipse that goes all the way around. That's the top of his actual rotor blades on the top, but we're now going to knock in his body shape. So if we think of his body as just a long box, so there have a box, just a rectangle that gives us the basic shape, and then you got the kind of the little shelf bit, and then the box underneath is another little rectangle, and coming off the back we've got his tail, which is going to go up from there, and then another rectangle for the rear rotor blade, and then another little rectangle for the top, which is, I mean, really it's like a kind of curved cone for the rear rotor that holds the rear rotor, and then that is very lightly, and you can just about see that, the simple shapes. So if I lift that up, you can see there's a very light rendering down of Blade Ranger from Piston Peak National Park, but we need to actually get him in, so I will zoom in a bit now. Oops, wrong way. Zoom, 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 zoom. So now we've zoomed in, we can just start to define those shapes a little bit better. So you got the top of the kind of top of the helicopter body. You get these white lines that come round, and remember, from putting these basic shapes down, you know, getting to the outside of the paper, so especially with a helicopter, there's so much going on that you don't want to run out of space, which could be very, very easy to do. But by putting the basic shapes down, it gives you, so from the center rotor, it gives you points where you can connect everything else together. So you've got the center point of the rotor, and the side of Blade Ranger's eyes comes there. And then his kind of peaked cap over the front, his eyebrows. And he's got the dual screen. The front comes down. He's got his little radio antenna pings off. So the front's come down, and the angle of his eyes just is not level, it's just going up a little bit. And you've got the windscreen, and then you've got his concentrating eyes. Looking intent with purpose, and his actual eyes go across both, but his pupils are quite large and they're underneath the top of his eyelids, giving him a very intense look because it looks pretty focused. So now we know that we can come down the side of his nose, and his eyes are starting to look together, but we won't detail them up until we've got the rest of the shapes in. So his nose, front of his nose comes about halfway, and that's going to go back and round, and that line again down the side of his cheek is just off the vertical, and then that's going to curve underneath. You got the red line that comes underneath of his paint, goes up the side, the top of his peaked cap goes off there, and then you've got kind of where the door panel comes and comes down, and then the door panel side of that. You've got his window inside, which is a little bit of a funny shape. It's not perfect rectangle. That back part there is a little bit smaller than that one, but you've got the reference points of where his eyes come up, so you know that the front one is going to be just underneath, and then he's got that bar across, and you've got the air intake on the side that's going to go round to where the exhaust is. The exhaust is just a nice quick little cylinder. Now these lines of the air intake are going to help when it comes to putting the actual letters in as well, but we'll cover that in a bit. So we need the side door, the ridge for how the slide will open. Again, that comes round. Then you've got the secondary door and the secondary window. Coming round. And these are nice simple shapes, but keep looking at your reference point and your reference photo to look where everything is. Again, I'm just using shapes. If you go, use the link at the end of the video and you can go to the how to draw playlist, and all the time lapses are there. This will be up as a time lapse as well, so you can see this coming together quite quickly without the narration. But right at the beginning of the playlist is how to draw the basics, and it shows you about using these shapes very quickly and very easily, and about drawing boxes, cylinders, cones and ellipses. And I recommend you go and check that out and just enjoy drawing boxes for a while, because here we've got the part that comes off the back. It's in line with the bottom of his eye, the kind of wingy shelf bit on the back of Blade Ranger's helicopter. That's looking pretty groovy. And then underneath you've got where this line comes up and joins, and that box joins there, and you can see where the reference point off that door has helped me pull the line over and make it work a little bit better. So that's his main body pretty much going in. We need to get the door in, and that's the window in the back door, and that runs in line with that window. Again, that's a nicer shaped rectangle, kind of halfway with that one, and we can detail these up a little bit. And then there's the little crest Piston Park badge on the side, indicate that shape. And then we need the tail. Again, that comes off and goes up. I've gone back a little bit too far, but because we've only put that in, the tail fin in loosely, we can correct that quite easily. The stabiliser arm is coming off. It's a little bit of an angle. And that's black, and that goes up under. You've got the line of your rotor blade, and that helps again with your reference point and your placing of all the points of your drawing. There's the exhaust. The top of the rear tail comes out the centre of the exhaust, and then that goes up. Good old Blade Ranger on his rear tail. Looks like he's sponsored by Adidas as well. Oops, there goes my pencil sharpener. Hello. And I'm just sharpening my pencil again, just to give the point a little bit. Let's give that a bit of 3D. A little bit more back in. Now, what's interesting is I've got that ellipse in the background, and I can see that I have gone way too tall, way too high with the rear rotors, because my reference point was just way too high. But when I blocked it in quickly, that's where I put it. But the actual rotor housing isn't as tall on the back, so I'm actually being able to change that quite quickly and nicely. So there is the outline of Blade Ranger from Planes Fire and Rescue down quite quickly, and we'll just start detailing him up. And then when we come to these interesting bits where his patterning is on the back, he's got all of the text, and that's quite complex, but we'll zoom in and we'll look at that in a moment. I'm just going to detail his eyes up and actually put a sharper line for you so you can see. And I've been fortunate enough to actually go in a helicopter a few times with ex-military pilots and the police. Not because I was a naughty boy, it's just because I was doing some work with them. I did a painting of the police helicopter squad once, which might be lurking on my website at billyart.co.uk. That's billyart.co.uk, and I've got portfolios of all my work on there. So right, we'll just sketch that in quite quickly. But it was a jet helicopter like this that I went in with the police, and it was good fun, because I even got called out on a job while I was out with them, which was even more fun. And normally you see helicopters flying around and they're pretty stable, they're like this kind of angle, but like I say, we were called out on a job and it was a military pilot and they were fully cranked over, all the, it was like, which was like, I just got a big grin on my face. It was good fun. But other aerial things that I've done in regards to my art, I once got thrown out of an aeroplane with the Red Devils, British freefall parachute team. That was rather interesting as well. Here we can bring that back a little bit as well, and that line goes underneath. So yeah, my art's taken me to some rather interesting places in the past. Did a lot of work with luxury car company Aston Martin years ago. And as you'll see at the beginning of the Dusty Crop Hopper drawing, let's get this guy's eyes in. One of my loves is motorcycles, and I get to enjoy that. I've been to the TT once, for pretty much all of the TT races, which is run over a fortnight, and that's good fun. But I get to go to racetracks to see cars and bikes and all kinds of things, and it's real good fun. Again, if you go to my YouTube channel, YouTube/The Art of Billy, like and subscribe, you'll be kept up to date with all the work I do. But there's a load of videos up on there from trips to tracks and things where I've had fun. Now, Blade Ranger's eyes, his pupils are quite large because he's flying in the dark, and again they kind of go dark to light. Leave the highlight point in, and there's his other pupil in quickly. Now I've done that a little bit dark, but again you can just use your putty rubber and lighten that up. Let's get his thoughtful looking eyebrows in, and you've got his nose coming down. Now what's really interesting is this side here, you've got a highlight on caused by the flames. So when you colour that in, always leave that little bit of space for the colour, the highlight caused by the flames. So if we whop that in quite quickly, all of a sudden Blade Ranger is starting to look pretty on the case, going off to do his work. Now again, let's just colour these in quite quickly. Got a bit of a shadow going on underneath there. There's his eyes in. He's got a bit of shading in his eyes, but he's red, so using the side of your pencil you can adjust your tone for where the shadow parts are and the highlights. You can just do it a little bit lighter because it's quite a nice rounded shape, so it's lighter here, and then where there's a bit of a dip in the metal, it'll change its tone. I've left that bit there because we're going to be doing the text in a moment. So we've got the red coming around the front, and then up the side it's got a nice bit of highlight down there. The windows are grey, you can fill them in, but then you've got different kind of reflections in there. Side panels, and then we need to put the back of his tail on, and then you also need the 3 white stripes indicated in nice and quickly, and then the rotor blade at the back. Because it's round, again the shadow is going to be underneath. It's got a really sharp highlight down the edge, so if you can kind of leave that as best as you can, but then get your putty rubber shadows darker underneath the tail on the side, and then we'll just get the shadow in at the front over his mouth. It's darker underneath. And this is just good exercise in getting your tones down. There's a join line on his collector box underneath his float. The shadow's stronger. This as it comes underneath. And then it's got the darker red on the kind of wing tail thing. Again, he's got a sharp highlight all the way around the edge of that. Again, darker underneath, just so as it stands out. So for the highlight, use your putty rubber again, and that'll make it stand out. That is Blade Ranger looking quite good, but I'm now going to sharpen the pencil and we're going to zoom in a little bit before we finish off, just so you can see this area here and this area here and this area here has got some text. So focus, there we are. Let's just put the 301 in and we're just going to do a quick test, nice and quickly. Camera, stop shaking please. Thank you very much. So just like you've got the lines on his door that give the delineation, what you can do is just draw lines for the text quite faintly and turn them into boxes. So you got a top line and a bottom line, almost like when you did handwriting exercises. When you first started doing them, you got the lines on the paper. You can create your own lines, and then inside the boxes, just watch and look. So you can see the three joins where the red goes into the grey kind of colour, and it comes underneath and comes around. And then the top for the O, for the 0 for his 301, comes down, and then you've got the 1, and then you can fill them in. Your pencil will automatically fill the shapes in quite nicely. Again, because I use this 2B pencil, it gives me a lot of versatility. So there's the 301. But here we've got quite an interesting shape. So you've got the top, the air inlet. So that comes down. You've got the shadow. And you've got your line going over the top, and he's got his black stripes. So use the black stripe as your guide. So there's your first, and you put the black in afterwards. I'm going to sharpen my pencil again. You can use a sharper pencil or a technical pencil, but here we've got N626BG, and that'll probably mean something. It'll all be revealed in the film, which is out soon. But again, you've got the crest down below. So draw a box. The N comes down and lines up over the top. Draw your lines. And the G comes to about there. Draw a line and then split it up. So that'll be your G box. That'll be the B box. The 6, the 2, the 6 and the N. And then inside the boxes, just draw the lines for the white letters, the outside. Just be very careful. So there's the N, curve of the back of the 6, inside of the 6, 2, then we go on to the next 6. There's the curve of the back, there's the top of the inside of the 6, then you've got the B on the side, and then you've got the G. So we're just bringing that shape down, and then going through the top of the 6 you can fill in the shapes with the dark and the B and the G, and the triangle, the diagonal line comes out, and that's how you can do very complex letters with shading. So then you've got coming underneath, going through the bottom of the B is the other diagonal stripe, and that goes up through the 6, and you can just fill the shapes in between, and it comes out above the top of the 6. See there how simple it is to do complex shapes. So we'll very quickly, just made a little bit of a mistake, so I've had to rub it out and start again, but I just wanted to cut all that out quickly. You need the boxes so that it wouldn't take up a load of time, because I drew the boxes and I started in the wrong one. So anyway, there's my lines for the top and bottom of the piston peak on here. So there you need the diagonal line that's coming through, and the P starts and goes through. So there's a box for the P, box for the E, box for the A, box for the K. And then there's my box for the N. This is the one that I pushed over wrong. There's the O, there's the T, there's the S, small one for the I, and the P. Yay! Got it right this time. So if I detail this up quickly, there's the I, there's the S, the shape for the T, shape for the O, the shape for the N, and the black comes around the outside of that and then comes down, and then you've got the P, and the E. Again, if you just think of them as squares and shapes, triangle for the A, and the K is really squashed up, so you just need the line for its piston peak. And then you can fill in the black around it, and you've got his graphics on his tail, which is great, and then you've got a darker one coming down on the side underneath the exhaust. The exhaust's going to have that bit of smudging on it. Oh, that's better. Phew! That's how easy you can just use shapes again to put your letters on in your graphics. So if we do the red underneath, let's draw the stabilizer in a little bit more, and then you've got the two lines going right, the white lines going right the way to the end, and then you can darken the red down on the back, shadow underneath there. His shadow needs darkening down a little bit on the sides. Let's just get his badge crest indicated a little bit better. But if we zoom out now, well, hey, here we have Blade Ranger looking a lot better, because the details are in and you've got the letters in quite nicely. Now again, the putty rubber is a brilliant tool, and the white line coming all the way to the front, you can just pull that in, or you can use paint or a white crayon or like a white gel pen or something to put your highlights on if you want. Now I'm just going to dink up some highlights quickly, just to give him a little bit of indication of where the highlights are and the edges of the metal, because metal has all these reflected colours into them and reflected highlights. Again, use trusty bit of kitchen roll, and that'll allow you to smudge things faster. But that's looking quite good, and now all we need to do again is his propeller. So remember, get the side of your pencil, draw the ellipse coming round, and you can use the reference points for where the speed is. Needs a bit of exhaust coming out of his exhaust, and you can smudge the rotor, and then you can indicate with your putty rubber some speed lines. But the big rotors are darker in the centre where there's not as much movement. This is really important on a helicopter when you kind of see it. There's a little aileron as well, and then you can lighten them off when they get to the edges. But you can see how it's still smudged, but it gets lighter as it goes out to the edge. Again, you can just use your finger and smudge that off, and then the edge ones indicate as it comes round for the speed lines, for the chopper 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 kind of helicopter sound. And you can make silly noises while you're drawing, and depending on the day and how things are filmed, you can see sometimes more rotors, which is quite interesting. And it's just an optical effect because you can't see the speed of it going round. As the blades come across the top, you can just see, just indicate a kind of highlighted line in, and it makes it look kind of speedy. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed that. There is Blade Ranger from Planes Fire and Rescue, and he goes together with Dusty and Lil Dipper. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please do like and subscribe, and if you check out the how-to playlist, click on the link, you'll see all the others from all the other drawings that I've done. So thank you very, very much for your time, and see you again soon. Ta-da.